Good evening to everyone. How are you doing this evening? I have the distinct honor of introducing Chaplain Mark Fenton tonight. He feels like part of our family. He really is part of our family. Okay, well, I'm going to introduce him. Chaplain Mark Fenton has worked as a hospice chaplain for over 25 years. He holds a master's degree in educational psychology. He is married to a wonderful woman named Shelley, who was instrumental in him becoming a chaplain. They have 3 children and 3 grandchildren. He says, working in the field of hospice is a constant reminder that my earthly journey is temporary and that I have a limited time to be about my Father's business. So he's about his Father's business tonight, and we're so happy he chose to be with us tonight. Thank you for coming, Chaplain Fenton.
Well, it's good to be back home, church. And I got to tell you, tonight was a first for me. I parked my car, and I'm walking up to the church, and I'm told that I needed to repark my car because there was reserved parking for the guest speaker. So, when I go back to church this weekend, I'm going to announce to my pastor that it's time for a transfer of membership. Honest to God, folks. I'm being 100% serious about this. No, I'm not going to transfer, but you always make me feel welcome here. I mean, it's just that whole parking thing just like took it right over the edge. It's like, my goodness. I felt the love anyway. You didn't have to go that far. But this is just a great place to worship, to fellowship. It's a great place for testimonials, you know. And I heard a testimonial tonight that I have to repeat. I can't resist. Did you know that Brother Newton robbed the cradle? I did not know that. I did not know that until tonight. I took that man for granted that he would take the high road, but he robbed the cradle after he came back from the war. The first woman he laid eyes on was the love of his life, and it didn't matter what the age was. He was taking her home to be his wife. And I think he made a great decision. What a wonderful, wonderful team the Newton family makes. Okay, enough with embarrassing folks. I figured if I did that, Carol, that maybe you'd stop inviting me back, you know? Telling the truth about grief. You know, that may sound kind of weird in a way. Like, what's the lie about anyway? If we're going to be talking about the truth. But you know, my experience has been, whether it be death or something closely associated with it, grief, it's just amazing how much fabrication can get woven into it for various reasons. And I think starting at square one, you know what, we're a death-denying culture. We want to believe that death, it happens over there, across the railroad tracks, or it happens over in that neighborhood. But you know what? Not my family. We're special. We're special until the doctor drops the report that, I'm sorry, the test came back, and you've got this. Or to hear those awful words, there's nothing more that we can do. Then the real wake-up call comes in. But it's after that there's more confusion, more misunderstanding, more things that interfere with the truth that kind of can mess folks up. And I just picked a handful of things. I could keep you here all night, which we're not going to do that. But I picked a handful of things that I thought these are probably some hot potatoes we can just toss out there in terms of things that maybe are not so true that we ought to straighten out just a little bit. First one, there's no shortcut to grief. Okay? Now, let me say this. I'm just as impulsive, just as much of a I want it now person as anybody else, okay? I kind of liken our generation to the microwave popcorn generation. Man, there is nothing like when you were just so hungry for some hot, buttery popcorn. You drop that bag in the microwave, 2.5 minutes, you've got hot, buttered popcorn. Life's good, you know? Now, I'm going to tell you, when I'm really hungry, I don't like to wait. And I've gotten myself in trouble more than once at my mother-in-law's, where she makes incredible meals, and she'll have things kind of all lined up, getting ready to put on the table, and I'll slip in that kitchen and grab me a little something to taste, to tie me over, and she'll slap my hand, tell me, Mark, that's not blessed yet. If you don't see me in heaven, you'll know why, okay? Now, it's one thing with, microwave popcorn or whatever our thing is. Like, I don't like waiting in traffic. Stoplights drive me out of my mind. I will go around and take an interstate loop to avoid going down a street that's got 4 stoplights. I'm just crazy about that. But one thing I do know, as it relates to my grief and yours, and here's the bad news, there's no shortcuts. There is no, okay, if you take this detour, folks, things are going to just be the fast lane, no speed bumps, no long waits. I'm sorry to break the news to you. That's the reality of meeting grief head on. It's also the best way to meet it, because there are no real safe, healthy detours. There's no shortcuts. And people got some crazy counsel about that. They think maybe they can go around it. You've probably heard this before, but it's a phrase that a man said one time. I cannot get this out of my head. The day that he said this, I thought, I've got to be hearing things. This man did not say this. Gentleman had lost his wife of 30 years, and I was doing some follow-up work to address his grief. It was, a month or so after the death, and I figured there might be some things he wanted to talk about. I was not prepared for his answer. This is exactly what he said. Thanks for calling, Chaplain, but we don't do grief here. That's what I did. You didn't just say that. We don't do grief. I thought, I didn't say this out loud, but I'm thinking, you've got a really unique home. Somehow the grief angel just flies right past your place, huh? And I'm not even questioning that I do believe he loved his wife and that they had a decent marriage. It wasn't like that. But he wasn't going to do grief. And as I've thought about that, I would add this. Maybe he didn't do grief. But I would say that grief did him. Okay? Because grief is not going to go unheard, all right? Because grief is a byproduct of love. We grieve because we love somebody. I'm just going to be honest with you, okay? When I die, and I have a death date, I don't know when it is, but when I die, I hope there's a few people that are grieving. I don't want it to be like one funeral that I went to. a funeral that I will never forget. I did it for a stranger. A young man had been shot and killed, and they just asked for, the funeral home asked for an officiant. And so I officiated this service of a stranger. There were no tears. There was no emotion in that congregation. It was bone-chilling. I don't know the story, but I know this. I did not feel love in that room. I don't know if they were glad he was dead. I don't know what it was, but there was not grief in the room of a funeral. There was something really, really wrong with that picture. So grief is a byproduct of love. It's normal. It's natural. It's going to happen. We can throw a stone wall up at it, but I got some bad news for you. If we do that, it's going to weave through the cracks and find a way to talk to us. Maybe it's never talked about. I've heard families that do some crazy stuff, like adopt this rule that we're not going to talk about Joe because that's just way too painful. Okay? Well, that grief will talk to you. Maybe somebody's wondering, why do I have ulcerative colitis? Why do I have digestive disorder? Et cetera, et cetera. It talks to us. We don't have to let it talk to us that way. We can name it, look that grief in the face, and it's okay to do that. You get through it. I'm not going to say that it's pain-free. It's painful. Grief is painful, and that's why a lot of folks want to dodge it, run from it, do anything but, oh my gosh, this is happening to me right here, right now. But that's the first step to healing, is to own it, that it is happening to me, to you, right now in real time. This isn't a dream. I don't know how many folks I've talked to through the years who've told me things like, I wake up sometimes and I'm not sure if this is my real life or if I'm just in a dream, because the one that they had felt really normal and it felt pretty good, but the one that they're in now without certain people that are important to them feels really strange, feels kind of awkward. And not mocking that, it is. It's foreign territory. But you get through it as you stay with it. I know my nephew is a Marine, and when he went to boot camp, I want to promise you something. And this is a kid that was pretty tough anyway. He was a state wrestling champ, but he'd never been to Marine boot camp before. Yeah, you know where I'm going, right? Let's just say it was kind of uncomfortable there for a bit. It didn't feel natural. Didn't feel normal. But you know what? My nephew was tough before. He is tough as nails now. He's on the other side. And our grief is like that. It may feel like at the time that we're facing it, I'm drowning. I'm suffocating in this. Stay with it. Don't give up. Just know there is a new normal coming. It feels mighty awkward right now. I think of the different shortcuts and diversions to grief, and I think one that frequently gets men into trouble is the idea of, well, if I just get busy, if I just stay busy. And that can kind of preoccupy us guys for a while with projects and whatnot. We can also kind of work ourselves into exhaustion from that, and more importantly, derail ourselves from Who was that I lost anyway? What did their position in my life mean? And when you start taking inventory, granted, there's pain, but there can also be kind of a rich reflection of, wow, that was good. While I had them, that was good. And that's worth remembering. That's worth taking inventory over. Folks can take various diversions from not wanting to go back to that closet where the clothes are hanging, not wanting to go back to certain social circles. I don't know how many times I've heard this. Mark, I'm odd man out. I'm odd woman out now because I'm single. I don't have my companion with me, and it can feel very awkward. People still love you, care about you, but you're feeling like that third wheel and that the fourth part of that wheel is gone. I think of how many times I've heard people say, man, it was so hard to go back to church and sit in the pew where we sat. We sat. I've heard people tell me they had to change churches over that. And that part breaks my heart. And I'm not saying that to throw stones or cast judgment. People got to do what they got to do. But I'm just saying that's how intense it can be. People feel a need to change locations because the reminder is so painful. But it's important just to take assessment of, what's important to you, what you can tolerate, and by golly, if it's going to be too painful every weekend that you sit in that church pew, then, after you've prayed about it, you do what you got to do. But I would hope that you're able to work through it. No doubt, I know you've had your grief program here for many years, and so Elizabeth Kubler-Ross is not a foreign name to you. She's kind of the grandmother of the whole grief movement with introducing the stages of grief. And those stages were a nice launch pad. I'll just say that. It was a nice icebreaker to say there's certain emotions that can emerge in the grief process where that whole Kubler-Ross thing got derailed is people grabbed onto that thing so tightly, it was easy to start putting people in boxes that, okay, are you in the denial stage, the anger stage, the depression stage, or whatever, and trying to map out those 5 stages. And if people know anything about grief at all, let's just be honest. It is not 5 nice, neat, orderly stages. It's a roller coaster ride. Anybody understand roller coasters? Yeah. It's up and down and all around and upside down sometimes. I would add to that each death is unique to that individual. Let's just say that everybody in this room, God forbid, lost their father, okay? We could all agree, well, we lost the most important man in our life from our birth years. And then we ought to all grieve the same way, right? Because we lost our daddy. Somebody's shaking their head, and I'm going to shake my head too. It doesn't work that way because we all got a different relationship with our daddy. And some had really amazing dads that you want to model your life after, and praise God for that. Others had dads that had maybe one leg in the game and another leg over the fence, and they kind of had 2 things going on at the same time, but you never quite got their undivided attention. And then you had the bailout dads. They were basically a donor, but they weren't really a father. And, my heart aches for you if you fit into that category. But I just share that in the context that as a result of those three scenarios that I painted, and we could probably add some more pieces to that, each person's grief is going to be very, very different. And it's important that we make room for that. Let me give you a couple of real-life examples. I had one of my older patients die yesterday. She was only 104. Just a sweet, godly woman that was ready to go see Jesus. And her biggest question was, what's the holdup? I'm ready to get home. She was almost blind. Hearing was shot. I mean, when I would go visit her, I practically had to yell at her. And I'm hard of hearing too, so we kind of had shouting matches when we got together. But I think about her 5 children that she leaves behind. And this lady has been without a husband, the lady that died, for about 30 years now. And her quality of life has just been extremely diminished. Do you think her kids are sad that Hildy is gone now? I'm going to give a qualified answer. Yeah, they're sad that Mom's gone. Are they mourning at a deep level that, oh my gosh, why can't Mom be here? We need more of Mom and all that. No, they really enjoyed the prime of her life, and they knew that her quality had really diminished, and that it was time. And it wasn't even a conflict with attitudes, because Mom was real clear, I'm ready. She was not begging God for more time. It made it real easy for everybody. Everybody was on the same page. But there would still be normal grief that, hey, this is Mom, and an important chapter in our family story has come to a close. But in terms of, I think there's going to be deep, profound grief, no. It was just a normal, natural sequence in life. Let me turn the page. I have a 49-year-old mother now. Kids in college. She's having a really, really hard time facing her death. I want to ask you something. She will probably die, I'm going to guess sometime after the holidays, because she's not going to miss Thanksgiving and Christmas. I am sure of that. How do you think her kids are going to feel when this 49-year-old mom dies? You think it's going to be like that 104-year-old? Well, everybody dies, right? Not the same. Not the same, because she got cheated out of life, right? I mean, she got shortchanged. She's not going to see those kids graduate from college. She's not going to see weddings. She's not going to see grandkids. And she asked one of our chaplains a really good question. She said, do you think I'm going to see my kids again? Am I going to see my grandkids? That's a pretty natural question, just wanting to know, what is the future going to look like? I have a patient who's approaching 90, who I would describe as grumpy, not the least bit happy. She's one of those persons, you ever gone to visit somebody and maybe you're wanting to go cheer them up and be a source of encouragement, and from beginning to end, there's a question in the back of your mind. Did I make any difference by even coming today? Yeah. So I've been seeing this lady for 2 years, and I'm always asking the same question. Did I make any kind of a difference today? This woman believes in God. She always lets me pray with her. I can always count on that. she's usually complaining about something. And I've never really felt like I've known her. Now, I know there's some dementia going on, but she's still got enough to operate with. But I've always felt like, there's a story there, but I don't know it, and she's not sharing it. I finally got to meet one of her kids this last week. It's a daughter, which I didn't even know she had a daughter. She always tells me that her son comes to see her. I learned some really important facts last week. The son never comes. That's what she believes. She lives in a fantasy world that the son's always coming to see her. And trust me when I say this, she sold that bill of goods and I bought it at retail price. She was very convincing. But the daughter just smiled at me and shook her head. She says, no, because my brother's not coming here. Said, my brother pays the bills, but he's not coming. Said, I'm the only one of the three that come. And so I shared with her, I said, I've been seeing your mom for 2 years at this nursing facility, and I just always felt like there's something this dear soul is carrying, and I want her to finish strong and to have a little lighter weight. And then some of the story starts trickling out that Mom was not a very loving person. She married a man who she thought had a lot of money. Didn't quite work out the way she wanted. The way the daughter described it was there was no love in the marriage, and there was no love for the 3 children. I was afraid to ask the obvious question, but the daughter offered it up for me. She said, I basically come to see Mom because she's my mom, and I believe it's the right thing to do. And as I heard that, my heart ached for her. She was not coming because I've got a wonderful, loving mom. Why wouldn't I be here? No, I'm coming because I respect her position in the family. And I only had one message to give her. I said, Mary, God bless you, because you are doing exactly what God asked you to do, to honor your mother. He didn't ask you to honor her if she's a kind, loving, warm, wonderful mom. He said, she's your mom, honor her. And when I said that, it's like, oh my goodness, this enormous weight came off her and the tears started rolling. She needed that validation that she was doing the right thing, because she said, it feels so artificial. And I said, I bet it does, because you never felt love from this lady. It would feel pretty weird, like, why am I investing all this energy? We didn't quite get into all this, but where I'm going is, when this lady dies, do you think there's going to be some intense grief? Kind of a loaded question. Think about that one. It's probably going to be a little bit of a mixed bag, isn't it? There's going to be the reality that my mom's gone, and that can be kind of sobering. But there's going to be this enormous vacuum of the mom that I wished I had had is forever gone. And there's not going to be a U-turn. That's going to be incredibly painful. And my heart aches for that lady, because that day is coming sooner rather than later. Let me touch on a couple of other things in terms of grief being unique and individual. Sometimes there's an enormous amount of suffering that goes along with what precedes a death. I think of some folks who maybe have had a very painful cancer, like a pancreatic cancer, where there is just misery and suffering. And I've talked to enough family members to know there's an interesting dynamic that emerges. There comes a point where family is no longer like cheering them on for the next treatment, the next intervention. In many ways, they're silently cheering them on to the finish line so the suffering can be over with. And then shortly after that happens, there's another dynamic that emerges. Oh my God, did I really think that? Did I really pray that God, would you just take them now? This is my flesh and blood, and I'm saying, would you take them out? Yeah, I said that. So there can be enormous guilt that comes with that reality. And folks, all I can say is that is so normal. There is nothing cruel, unnatural about that. Loving, caring human beings don't want to see people suffer. Now, I'm not suggesting that we go euthanize each other when we have pain and suffering, but I am saying it is normal to want to see relief from that. And death, in fact, can be a blessing. And it's just an enormous tension that we're presented with when we're facing something like that. And again, it contributes to how we grieve, because people then can sometimes punish themselves later that why did I pray that God would take them? Why did I wish that this was over? I really would rather have Dad here and so forth. It's important for us to let one another off the hook. Number one, we didn't cause the death, okay? We desire relief. That's compassion, to desire relief. There's other things that can really make grief complicated, and I'm thinking about people that are highly dysfunctional within a family system. And I'm going to share one of those dysfunctions with you right now that you no doubt have heard of before, but it's such a classic example of dysfunction and how it can twist our emotions to the point where we're not even thinking rationally about what just went down with a death and whatnot, okay? So I'm going to read to you from 2 Samuel 19:6. It's the story of David and the aftermath with Absalom. And Joab was told, "Behold, the king is weeping and mourning for Absalom." So the victory that was turned into mourning. By the way, everybody know who Absalom is, right? Was Absalom like just the noble, loving son that was all about obedience to the king, his father? No, he was a rebel son that was leading a rebellion and attempting to overthrow the kingdom with his reckless mindset. So the victory that was turned into mourning for all the people. For the people heard it and said that day, "The king is grieved for his son." And the people stole back into the city that day, as people who are ashamed steal away when they flee in battle. But the king covered his face, and the king cried out with a loud voice, "Oh, my son Absalom! Oh, Absalom, my son, my son!" Then Joab came into the house of the king and said, "Today you have disgraced all your servants, who today have saved your life, the lives of your sons and daughters, the lives of your wives, the lives of your concubines, in that you love your enemies and hate your friends." We talk about being a messenger. He laid it on the line to King David there. But what was going on for King David? Was he acting kingly there? I didn't hear anything in his declaration that sounded kingly. What I heard was a broken-hearted father. His son had been killed, and rightfully so. He was a rebel attempting to take over the kingdom. And Joab, one of the loyal soldiers, one of the right-hand men of David, was shocked that David would allow his men to go into harm's way and do their work, and now he was mourning what they had taken care of. It was a slap in the face. I share that with you because grief can be confusing, can be complicated. Dysfunctional families can make grief anything but normal, okay? Because there's a part of this that's normal, in that it's normal and natural for a father to grieve a son, but it wasn't very proper for the king of Israel to be grieving over someone who was attempting to destroy the kingdom. Dysfunctional families can make things very complicated. Here's the third bullet point. We long to have our grief validated. We long to have understanding for the loss. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say that for the most part, people want to give us that. Most people are genuine. They want to do the right thing. Here's the bad news. Some people don't know how to do it, and so they say stupid stuff. And what happens after they say stupid stuff? You feel this, oh, that hurt. My all-time favorite, if I can use that word, was I had a brother-in-law that suicided a number of years ago. Took me a while to go back to church. My wife and I were just beyond ourselves with knowing how to manage that whole loss. It was very, very complicated. And I'm going to start on a positive note. God was so kind and had some of just the right people meet us at the door with loving, kind messages. I want you to hear that first of all, okay? God was so good to us. And I learned some things about some church members that I didn't even know before that touched my heart. Satan was at work too, though. He always is. And he loves to work inside the family of God. So I had one well-meaning member come up and say, you know, what Todd did was selfish. And I look back on that now just like I did the same day I heard that, and I thought, was that supposed to comfort me? Because I'm not feeling that right now. I'm really not feeling that. And if you knew the individual, he kind of operates from a little different place. He's a good person, but I wouldn't say compassion is something that comes very natural. But I'm not going to let that determine my worship experience, at my church. But I share that with you, that people can let some stuff fly out and not realize the damage that it can do. Now, I hope I don't step on somebody's toes here when I fly this balloon out here, because I know this is often a phrase that is used around believers. And I'm here to tell you, it doesn't necessarily comfort the faithful always. And what I'm talking about is, someone has a loss, and a dear brother or sister is wanting to comfort, and they come up and they're attempting to comfort, and they say, well, sister, God just needed another angel. Now, I got to tell you, my wife and I are both believers. We've got reservations in heaven. And if I lose Shelley tonight, would you make a promise to me? Make a promise to me. Don't say that. That is not going to comfort me. I promise you. Now, Sister Carol, they all were in agreement, so you hold them accountable when I lose my wife. You know, I don't think pain is ever wasted. I think one of the really neat things about God's economy is he takes all those scraps and broken pieces and he does things with them. And so if you've been one of those who've been wounded with the words that you really didn't want to hear, think about that. Think about that as you go to offer comfort for the next person who's hurting. Think about what you needed and maybe you never got, and give it away and see what God does with that. You know, he is the one who takes the little fishes and the little pieces of bread and he feeds multitudes. I don't know what he's going to do with your pain, but I can tell you what, he can multiply good things out of that pain, out of that irritation that has landed in your life. The fourth thing that comes to my mind in terms of an important truth is that we grieve what was and we grieve what will never be. And that kind of goes back to this woman that I mentioned, that when her mom dies, that reality is going to set in like it never has before, that there is no U-turn now. There is no, well, mom's going to wake up one day and realize how to be a loving person. No, it's too late for that. And there are people among us that are grieving what was not. I'm one of these guys, I like to just make it simple. Just cut the chase and make things really, really easy to understand and make it simple. So I'm going to do that right now in terms of this whole death and dying thing, because I see people so often gravitate to why this happen? A little bit like Job. You know, Job's friends are looking at him like, Job, you brought this on yourself. What did you do? What did you do to make God mad? And I have had countless patients ask me, I don't know what I did to make God mad. I don't know why I got cancer. I don't know why I'm dealing with this disease. And I'm going to go back to the answer book here, okay? Because I don't want you to hear my words. I want you to hear right from the beginning of the book where we're at. It comes right out of Genesis 3. And it says in Genesis 3:16, and the Lord commanded the man, saying, of every tree of the garden you may freely eat, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat. For in the day that you eat it, what's going to happen? And guess what? That was the beginning of what brings us here right now. We got this ugly critter called death. Our great-great-grandparents made some really bad choices, but it's in our DNA to make bad choices, so it's not like we can just cast the blame all on them. We've got a human problem. We like doing things our way because we didn't necessarily think that God had the best plan. But I got to be honest, I've been on this planet long enough now that I am coming to the conclusion he's got a pretty good program. And my life seems to be a lot more content and happier when I'm in alignment with what he asked me to do. But it does not change the fact that we have consequences still. And that takes me to one of my favorite verses in the Bible that just, it kind of puts it all together. John 16:33. Jesus said, these things I've spoken to you that you may have peace. In this world, you are going to have trouble. Okay, I want you to raise your hand if you're one of those unique folks that has never had trouble. Okay. You're my people. I've had trouble too. I still got trouble. But you know what I know about that trouble? And this is a really important piece here. This kind of sets things right on why is all this going on? Earth is not home. Okay, I'm going to repeat that. Earth is not home. Just passing by. This is just a classroom, folks, to see if Satan's way is the way or is God's way the way. I've buried a lot of people in my lifetime. Buried a lot of them. I got to tell you something. Devil does not have anything to offer me that makes me think, now, you know what? There's the way, walk in that. No, I don't see it. But here's the good news of this passage. There is trouble enough for everyone. None of us are going to get shortchanged, okay? We all get our fair share of trouble. But Jesus concludes this declaration with, of all things, be of good cheer. Why? Why should we be of good cheer? He's defeated our worst enemy. Folks, we've got a reason to cling to hope. Doesn't mean we can't grieve. Grief is normal, natural. It's part of the process. But we are not hopeless. I love the way Paul framed it. We don't grieve like other men grieve. It's true. I haven't said one thing about the holidays, and I know I'm on overtime, sister, but I'm going to say this about the holidays. This is one of my favorite Bible verses, and I want you to cling to this like a best friend, okay? We all long to be understood, to feel like they get it. They get it. There's nothing more painful when you're hurting, and we've all had it happen, where somebody, they're kind of like going along with what you have to say, but they're not really hearing or feeling what you have to say, okay? Well, I want to read your insurance policy to you, okay? This is just an amazing Bible verse, and I encourage you to take this right into the holidays with you when you're feeling like, man, there's nobody else here in this room that's missing a spouse. There's nobody else here in this room that is missing a child. Nobody gets it. Nobody gets my pain. Oh, wait. Somebody does get it, okay? Somebody does get it. I'm going to give that person a name here in just a moment, because my Bible tells me in Isaiah 53, it describes somebody that gets it. His name is Jesus. And it says this about him, that he was despised and rejected by men. You know what else it says about him? He was a man of sorrows, and I love this part, acquainted with grief. You know what that means? He was acquainted with grief. It means he gets it. It means that when you and I are hurting, when we just feel like there is nobody in my family, I don't have a friend that has a clue what's going on here, we can cry out to the Lord Jesus and know, oh, wow, finally somebody gets it. He will be there for you, folks, right through your darkest hour. He will be there for you through the holidays. May God fill your heart with peace and hope as we move forward into these holidays.
Chaplain Fitman, you always give me something to make it through the holidays. And so we appreciate you coming every year because you give us something new to add on to what you gave us before. And I recall before, he's always told us to talk about your loved one that's not here. So we want to give you an opportunity to talk about your loved one. Maybe you have a story that you want to share with us about your loved one. I've told some stories. I got lots of names on my little card here. I put everybody on there that I'm missing, that I love. But I think about my mom and dad a lot because they had a lot of sayings that they would say to us to tell us, to teach us something really quick and in a hurry. So as I interact with people, and it was just this week, somebody would say, well, I thought, and my dad would always say, that's the problem. You need to stop thinking and start knowing. So every time I hear somebody say, well, I thought, I think about my dad because he would have been telling, well, you need to stop thinking and start knowing, and stuff. So I think about him every day because somebody says that every day. Well, I thought this, I thought that. Well, that's the problem. You need to stop thinking and start knowing. So we want to give you an opportunity. Do we have another mic? Or we can use this one to share a story about your loved one. Who would like to be first? Well, I went first, so you can't be first. Now you got to be second. Okay.
Well, everybody knew my mother, and some of you even knew my father. He was the one that got everybody started here at Stranger's Rest. But mother, for years, played both the organ and the piano and directed some of the choirs. And, well, after she transitioned, it took me a while to get back into the church because I couldn't walk in the sanctuary without seeing her either on the piano or the organ. And now I walk in the sanctuary, her name is on the window over here, and also in the music room. But that has been several years now, and things have changed. She always said, even when I'm gone, continue to move forward. Well, I've been blessed. I'm now a deacon in the church, and I'm not saying I'm the best deacon. I know I'm not. I've got a lot of faults. But at least she gave me the encouragement, and my dad also, to do what God had me to do. And you here at Stranger's Rest, I'm going to blame you because you're the ones that got me to come into the deacon ministry and also into the grief management and some other things. And I appreciate that because it's made me better for doing that. Amen.
Thank you, Deacon Lewis, for sharing. Anyone else? Okay, Sister Hyson.
Freddie and I were married 57 years, and out of those 57 years, every now and then he would tell me something I'd never heard him say before. He'd mention somebody in his childhood I'd never heard him mention before, and I'm never going to know everything about him because he just shares a little bit at a time. But we'd always bought our automobiles together. But one year, I bought a car by myself. And he was in Arkansas visiting, and my car broke down. And I went and bought this car, and I'm being a big girl buying a car by myself. And I drove it to Arkansas to show off my new car. Now, he drove down there with his brother, which meant he had to drive back with me, and his brother had to drive all by himself. So years later, now, this is years later, he said, you hurt my feelings. I said, what? When you bought that car. I thought, this 20 years later, you're telling me I hurt your feelings because I bought a car by myself. And I'm thinking I'm being a big girl. You know, I can go buy a car by myself. And it hurt his feelings that I went by myself and bought my own car. And I mean, things about him surprises me even today.
Thank you for sharing. Anyone else? Okay, and then would you say?
Mine to be real quick. It's good to see you guys here, Strangers Rest. I got to start coming back over and visit. I just hate driving across that bridge now. But when Chaplain Mark talked about people, you'll be in a church and then you wind up having to leave that church. Well, the church that me and my husband belonged to, he was a deacon and he was very, very, very involved at the church. He used to go in early on Bible study day and set up the room, the chairs and all that. He drove the bus to pick up the people for church and take them. I was the main pianist at the church at that time. And when I lost him suddenly. I found him in his sleep. He had died in his sleep. And I wasn't feeling too good. It was a Sunday. And when he drove the bus, and when he got home, he was kind of late. And I was like, why are you just now getting home? And he said, well, you know, I had more people on the route and everything than what I usually do, so it took me a while. I said, well, okay. So he said he wasn't feeling too good, so he says, I'm going on upstairs and go to bed. Well, I fell asleep in the TV room, and I woke up that morning, and I said, I just felt this eerie feeling. So I went up, found him. So that was like the first Sunday of the month, because we had communion, because I was upset, because I said, I always like for him to serve me communion, because he knows how to serve me when I'm playing for communion. And so this other deacon came up, and I was like, where's Kenneth? He's supposed to serve me communion, you know. So the first month, the next month, when I came back, I went down to Crown Center. I'll never forget this. I went down to Crown Center, and I just walked and talked with Jesus and Kenneth. And I said, I can't stay there. I just cannot. Because he was he was like pastor's right-hand man. And I just couldn't do it any longer. So I went in and I had a talk with my pastor. I said, I just can't do it, you know. You know I love my church. I said, but I can't stay here any longer. So when you talked about that, leaving, you know, and then what made it so strange, after I lost him, Pastor Ellis bestowed upon my husband, he became the man of the year. And he was the first one that got it posthumously. And so every year, but now Pastor Ellis has gone on home to be with the Lord. And so this new pastor hasn't continued that tradition, but it was years. Every year we had the Kenneth M. Payne Man of the Year Award. So it feels good to say this. So.
Thank you. Sister Phillips.
I loved my father, and I regret that I'm getting more and more like him, kind of nutty. But the two main males in my life were my husband and my son. My son died at the age of 7, and how I remember him, he taught me how to love 100% unconditionally. Because when I was young, I made the statement, I will never love anybody 100%, then I wouldn't have anything left for me. But when I lost my Michael, I learned you can learn 100% and still find joy. And then with my husband, I was married to him 43 years, and when I lost him, I said it aloud, and I still say it. I lost my personality because he was outgoing, and I'm reserved. And when I think of him, I'm never sad. I always laugh because it was that kind of life that I lived, and I feel so blessed. And I'm on my way out because I'm not 94 for nothing, but I do not regret death at all. And I tell my children, see me now, do what you can now, but I am not afraid of death. And I don't live to die, I live to live.
This is just kind of a story and a memory. Do you all like peanut butter and jelly? Okay. Well, okay. If you don't, you might after this. Miss Tucker, and dear, I loved her like a mother. She was like a mother to me. Today, I had this today. Is what made me think about it. I decided I would have me a peanut butter and jelly sandwich for breakfast. Her thing was, I want a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, but I want butter on it. So if you've never tried it, try it. Butter, peanut butter, and jelly.
Okay, here we go.
I'm going to tell a story about my mother. My mother was a school teacher down in Arkansas, and she told us that she didn't like children. And then she had a sister younger than her, and she died at age 25 or 29, I think. And my mother was so mad that she quit going to church, and she got mad at God because she thought. And so she told us this story about her being angry with God, and stayed mad for about 2 years. Then she, started going back to church. But she was a drug addict. She drug all 7 kids. She had 7 children, 4 boys and 3 girls, and she drug 7 children to Sunday school, BTU, church, afternoon services. And I said, for somebody that don't have kids and was a school teacher and had 7 kids, it just didn't make sense to me. But we couldn't ask questions back in that day about that type of thing. So I just had to figure it out for myself how that situation happens. And so she, by doing what she did, she made me the person I am today. I'm like Deacon Lewis. I never in my life thought I would be anything in the church. But I came home from the penitentiary in 1991 after spending 9.5 years. And then about a year or 2 later, they asked me to start studying to be a deacon. I said, I can't be a deacon. My wife divorced me. They said, well, that means you have to be a husband of 1 wife at a time. And then I said, but I mean, like, I've been to the penitentiary. They said, well, so did Paul go to. And I was trying all my best to get out of being what they wanted me to be, or said that you're already a deacon. You tithe, you come to church, you go to Sunday school, you go to BTU. And I said, okay. So I started studying for the deaconship, or for the diaconate. And in 98 or 95, I can't remember now, there were about 5 of us that were canonized. And my brother was with me. My youngest brother was part of that. And I think my mother was still alive. So she was able to see 2 of her sons become deacons of the church. And that was a blessing to me to be able to have her to be able to see that. But, a woman that taught school, didn't like kids, had 7 of her own, and 2 of them became deacons.
We thank you guys for sharing your stories of your loved ones. I hope that you look around in the room and see the people that are here, people that can be support for you during this holiday. And if you're feeling down, you just think about the people that were here and call them, because we're all in the same boat. Now we're going to do our memory tree as Sister Payne plays some soft music for us. I hope you picked up an ornament. Like I said, I got lots of names on my ornaments of loved ones in my life that we lost. And what we're going to do is just have you come up and hang your ornament on the tree and pick up an angel. And you can hang that angel on your tree at home. You can sit it by your bed. You can do whatever you want to with the angel. If you don't have one, they're an ornament. They're right over here in the chair. So please come and get one. So as you come up, just come up the middle aisle and hang your ornament and pick up your angel. Thank you for sharing your stories and participating in our memory tree. We'll have closing remarks by Sister Brenda Ison.
Good evening. The Grief Management Ministry has put this program on for a number of years, and Reverend Fenton has been so gracious to come and share with us all of these years, and we appreciate him, and he never tells the same stories. So you think in all these years he repeat himself, but he's not repeated himself, as I can tell. And we enjoy having him come and share with us, because grief is normal for everybody. Nobody escapes it, and we do need some help with coping with grief in our lives. We have a support group here, and I don't know, are they meeting, have they done this 6 weeks already? When will the next one be? In the spring. And they'll send out notices when they're going to have the support group. If you're struggling with a loss, and the loss doesn't have to be a person, you can lose your job. You can lose a friend. You can lose whatever it is, the loss in your life. It causes you to grieve. And if you need help in coping with your grief, we invite you to come to the support group. Mrs. Payne, we want to thank you so much for coming and sharing with us this evening. And Reverend Fenton, we do have something for you as well. We have a token for you, and then we have something something special. So you're getting two things if you come out, please. Yes. Thank you. We have refreshments downstairs. Is that correct? We invite you to come down, and we invite you to come again next year. We have this every year, so look for us for our program, and come and share with us. Thank you. Benediction and blessing of the food.
Join me for prayer. God, we thank you for this gathering. Thank you for being the God of all comfort. You meet us in our sorrow and offer peace, comfort, and hope. I pray that there'll not be one person in this congregation that is void of peace and hope during these holidays. So I thank you for the gathering tonight, for the opportunity to fellowship afterwards. Ask your blessing now on the time that we share and the food that we share. In Jesus' name, amen.